not giving a speech tonight. But then I realized that I would render you all speechless. So I opted to do it anyway. That's not the last one, don't worry. I'm surprised and slightly concerned that Courtney DePalma gave me a microphone this evening. Considering that when I was in charge of the CL hot seat my sophomore year, I asked the CLs in front of all of their residents who their favorite resident was. That did not go over well. Hopefully this speech will be a little bit less terrible. Don't worry, I have another copy. When I think about my time in the HRC, one of the biggest things that comes to mind is friendship. But definitely not shallow friendship. Shallow friendship might get frustrated at 10 p.m. phone calls for the explicit purpose of telling someone a horrible pun you found on the internet. Shallow friendship would likely refuse to participate in a VeggieTales song and dance routine that was pulled together in 2 days for a talent show. Shallow friendship probably wouldn't make a series of memes of your facial expressions to be released on the internet. Callie Warren. And shallow friendship definitely wouldn't, after a week of knowing you, purchase you this. Oh, it lights up. And tell you that they are #blessed to know you. Ryan Boak and Daniel Beck, ladies and gentlemen. Thankfully, we're all stuck together in 2 buildings with small kitchens and smaller closets, and our friendships are anything but shallow. What I find hilarious about the HRC is people think we're a bunch of stuffy nerds who just want to be alone and read books all day. I know this describes some of you, but stay with me. It was HRCers who, when the homecoming parade was rained out in 2015, woke up early and, in the rain, marched from Alexander to Memorial with Dr. Tran at the head, with Nerf guns and line jerseys singing the fight song. It was HRCers who organized a standing strings orchestra for now 4 years, then played the We Shop theme at their concert last year. It's HRCers who dedicate 3 days out of every semester to help their friends escape classrooms and academic buildings to avoid the zombies. I love to tell outsiders that putting a bunch of overachievers with many talents in the same place makes magic happen. Yet the strange and wonderful friendship we have here can't be explained away like that. It wouldn't explain why an impromptu worship service in the reading room would last 2 hours in the wake of a friend's death, and why everyone would take such care to check on everyone else. It wouldn't explain why Honors Line Camp consistently ends with a debrief session where everyone cries their eyes out with tiredness and joy at the memories that have been made. It wouldn't explain why Dylan Flum would take his own time to organize a community gathering for HRCers who couldn't go home over Thanksgiving break. And why when Joao needed money to get home for Christmas because he couldn't access his bank funds, his donors were mostly HRC people. There are stories upon stories of HRCers living together and taking care of each other. When I was a young, impressionable, and incredibly awkward freshman, I was intimidated by the massive amount of talent surrounding me. In my small rural high school, I was the smartest kid around, and I became accustomed to that role. Suddenly, I felt eclipsed. People like Jamie Wheeler, Emma Weatherford, and Andrew Boss were way smarter and more mature than I would ever be. My roommate of 3 years, Jordan Milholland, can probably recount multiple conversations in which he had to assure me that he was not infinitely better than me in every way. And then came class after class of smart, hardworking people that in my mind I could not hope to match. Spencer Carter and Matt Young, and Ryan Harris and Riley Peterson, and a lot of other people have more musical talent in their pinky fingers than I will ever have. Michael Agapost knows more about politics than I ever will. Rachel Cummins, Blake Felt, and Kenan Dickens juggle more responsibilities than I have any desire to do. Comparing myself to everyone in this community has caused me a lot of heartache. I spent a lot of times in my room, not this past year, but the year before and the year before, curled up in my bed, wondering if I was good enough to live in this community. And based on the statistics Rachel presented at HRCU and PJ's, I know I'm not alone. So how in the world can I say with confidence that I have experienced friendship in such a remarkable way in the HRC. I strongly believe that God has ordained and blessed this community ever since it was founded 15 years ago by some of the people in this room. Why else would a residence hall full of strong, independent overachievers remember to drop their guards and cry in each other's rooms when life gets hard? Why else would a residence hall where everyone strives for a perfect 4.0 be focused on rest of all things? Why else would we remember to love and care for our friends when there are assignments due and leadership positions open and scholarships to apply for and resumes to polish and everything else in the world that we need to do in college? Why? We love because he first loved us. When I was an honors line camp leader the summer before last, we did an exercise the day before camp in which we identified a word for the week. I sensed that God's word for me was open, because I didn't feel like I had listened enough to my line campers the previous year. So I tried to be open to what my campers had to say. Wouldn't you know, I had a Jew, a Muslim, an agnostic, and some very smart Christians in my group. And they were ready to talk about it. Every small group time turned into a theological discussion. And I'm fairly certain Cole Sutton stayed up until at least 4 a.m. one night discussing Christian and Muslim doctrine. I may have been a tiny bit overwhelmed. Yet I know that God worked through that group. He prepared me to listen, and he brought together those who may otherwise have felt alone. Just as I believe God used me in that moment, he has used many of you in my own life and the lives of others. I can recall so many times when life just got hard, and Daniel Adams, Andrew Boss, Forrest Jones were willing to let me have an hour of their time so I could vent to them and wonder what was wrong with me and what was wrong with this world. The essence of our community is to love God, to love our neighbor, and to love learning, as you've heard tonight. All of the amazing and wonderful things that happen here are sourced in these three values. I am blessed, so blessed, that I live in a residence hall where not only are these virtues cherished, but I get to see them lived out in the people around me. From my very best friends of 4 years here to Peter Farrader, who literally moved in 2 weeks ago, the HRC is one of the best embodiments that I have ever seen of Christ's commandment to love God and love others. I and many others in the senior class will miss you dearly next year. It's going to be hard to adjust to not living in a place where I can just walk down the hallway and knock on a friend's door and ask them if they want to do something. You don't get that kind of stuff in the real world. I know because I lived in an apartment this past summer and it sucked. I and many others in the senior class, I would say all of us in the senior class, will miss you all dearly next year. And on behalf of all of us, thank you for being a community worth living in for 4 years. And God bless you all.